Well, so, I mean, speaking of interventions, we talked about basically the four horsemen that you mentioned: the lack of exercise, the increased sugar intake and insulin response, the toxins that we were exposed to throughout our environment. And we've got people hitting on all those different topics throughout this project. But the one thing you mentioned was grounding, and we talked about how to do that: leather, shoes, that type of thing. But are there any other types of tips on how to get out there and get grounded so that helps thin our blood and allow for better circulation, allow for this decreased inflammatory response in the vessels?
Yeah, I mean, weather permitting, walking barefoot is, like I said, the healthiest thing you can do. If you can find a park, if you can find a beach with sand, where the water comes up and it meets that sand, when it gets wet with the minerals, it's awesome. I mean, that's swimming in the ocean is good. Taking up gardening and putting your hands in the earth is really healthy for you. You can sleep grounded. You can sleep on grounded mats. You can put like a pad underneath your computer if you're working at a computer and your bare feet on the pad. You can buy leather shoes. If you're like in Maine, you're in Portland, you're not going to go out barefoot. I mean, you can't do that. But if you're at home, like this, see this brick thing behind me? I mean, if I touch that brick, I'm grounded. In fact, if you touch your water faucets in your home, or if you have like a basement that is concrete and you walk barefoot there, or if you have a fireplace and you want to sit on the hearth and just touch the brick or the stone, that's grounded. Even if you can ground for 15 minutes to a half hour a day, I mean, that's bringing good Schumann energy into the body, and you'll reduce the inflammatory index. One thing I learned about grounding, we saw changes in skin conductance like that. 1 second. 1 second. I mean, amazing. It works that quick.
Wow. So, I mean, grounding, it does become difficult in the wintertime, obviously. And unless you have one of those pads or a brick fireplace or, some other type of technology that can at least reduce your exposure or block some of the non-native EMF that we're exposed to on a daily basis. It's amazing to me that this science has been out for so long that, even when you did the studies or read the studies about the rats, the immediate response that you're seeing in the blood. I mean, is there any recommendations for how much time a person should try to put in per day, or, any ranges of what to do?
Good question. We were doing a hypertensive study on using grounding to lower blood pressure, because we've had several anecdotal cases where people who grounded went on less blood pressure medication, and a lot of them got off it. And the study that we organize right now is we're recommending 12 hours a day of grounding for hypertensives. That's a lot. But I'll tell you, in the research I did with heart rate variability, 2 hours was awesome. Thinning the blood, 2 hours of grounding would just do it. So the sicker the person, the more you need to ground. Cancer, far advanced heart disease, inflammatory diabetes, metabolic syndrome, I would say try to ground at least, a few hours a day. If you're on multiple medications, treating high blood pressure, for example, grounding is good. But again, we were using a lot of time with the grounding because, people wanted to get off medications. Now, by the way, we don't recommend grounding with warfarin. If you're on Coumadin, we have found people, because since grounding thins the blood initially, if you're on a blood thinner like warfarin, we would tell people not to ground. Or if they had to ground because it helped their arthritis or their inflammation, they have to work with their physician and make sure that their blood wasn't getting too thin. And a lot of these people, even my own patients, I had to lower the Coumadin doses in these people. So, that's one of the drawbacks to grounding, is that sometimes, you have to lessen the pharmaceutical load, which a lot of people want. But again, we don't want to make the blood too thin. And that's why when people do ground, and if they are on a serious blood thinner like warfarin, I haven't seen it with aspirin or a Plavix, but I don't like people grounding taking warfarin.
And do you think those pads are good enough, for somebody who needs to be grounding, 2 to 12 hours a day?
Oh yeah, the pads are good. I sleep on grounded sheets. I sleep on a grounded pillowcase. Because Chevalier and others, it wasn't myself, I wasn't doing this research, but they showed an anti-aging effect on the face when you sleep on a grounded pillowcase, because, again, you're bringing more, electrons into the facial skin. And remember, the face is highly vascular as well. So, the more grounding you can bring to the face, and it's in the literature. I think if you Google, let's say, grounding and facial vasculature or facial blood flow, I'm sure something will come up, because I saw the research myself. It was pretty good research.